Hello, welcome to Miss Gigi's class. Today we're going to work on percent proportions, and so that means we'll find a missing quantity when given the other elements. So we'll be working with percent, part, and whole to set up a proportion. So on this problem, it states on Wednesday, 72% of the customers who bought salad at a restaurant made additional purchases. There were 250 customers who bought salad. How many of these 250 customers made additional purchases? So let's go through the step-by-step process to set up a proportion. The first one says set up a proportion. And looking at here, percent always goes over 100, equaling part over whole. So in this problem, we're given 72%. So we can immediately set up the proportion as 72 over 100. And that's going to equal part over whole. So when looking at this problem, it says that 72% of the customers purchased salad. And then it tells you that there's 250 customers. That is a total. And we know that because it asks us how many of these 250 customers made additional purchases. So that is going to be the quantity that we try and find the value of. So we're going to give that quantity an x, and that's a variable, and we're going to solve for the variable. So we set up the proportion, that's step one. The second one says to cross multiply. And so what we're going to do is, some of you've heard it called hockey stick, some of it butterfly. And so when we cross multiply, that means we're going to multiply across. So x times 100 is x, or is 100x. And 72 times 250, and we can kind of come out over here and do the math. And without us spending a lot of time doing the math, I'm going to use a calculator. But for you, unless you're able to use a calculator, then I would strongly encourage you to show your math and do that on the screen. And so what I get is 18,000 after multiplying 72 and 250. All right, so now we've got an equation. It says cross multiply, and we've done that right as an equation. So one side of the equation is these two quantities multiplied, and the other side is these two. Now we go ahead and solve. So 100 times a number equals 18,000. Oh, forgot my O at the end. And so in order to isolate the variable, the next step is isolate the variable by completing inverse operations. In order to isolate x, we need to do the opposite of multiplication. And the inverse operation of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides of the equal sign by 100. And in doing that, 100 divided by 100 is 1. And 18,000 divided by 100, I notice something here. I can simplify this. And when I simplify it, what happens is I cross out the zeros that are on top of each other. I'm going to bring down my x. I don't have to bring down the 1 because since there is one x there, the 1 is invisible. And then I've got 180 over 1. And we know that any whole number over 1 equals just that whole number. So x equals 180. So we kind of go back to the problem and reason through it. It asks, well, it tells you that there were 250 customers who bought salad. How many of these 250 customers made additional purchases? So that makes sense. 180 customers out of 250 customers made additional purchases. Thinking about that, the reason I go back and put it back into my problem is because I want to reason through. Had I done the division here and perhaps I made a mistake and maybe I came up with 1,800. Well, that wouldn't make sense. 1,800 out of 250, well, there were only 250 customers to begin with. So it doesn't make sense that I'd have more than what I started with. All right, and our last step was solve. And so it is 180 out of 250 customers that bought additional purchases.